Welcome to This Week from the Principal's Desk, a podcast about Lutheran schools and their leadership. This podcast is hosted by two school leaders. My name is Rob Lunak, and I'm the superintendent of Lutheran neighborhood schools in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And my co-host is Mike Sheeman.
Hi, my name is Mike Sheeman. I'm principal at Bethany Lutheran School in Parma, Ohio. And I've been looking forward to this podcast because we have a special guest that we have joining us in this. And anytime that we can bring more people into the conversation about education, it just continues to make the experience even deeper for everybody. So, Rob, I'm going to punt it back to you to introduce our special guest today.
Our special guest today is Nathaniel Provencio. He's worked in the public education field since 2001 as a classroom teacher, building administrator, and associate superintendent. He's been honored as the 2017 Prince William County Principal of the Year, the 2017 Washington Post Principal of the Year, and the 2019 Virginia National Distinguished Principal of the Year. He's the author of Community Connections in Your PLC at Work, which focuses on how schools can utilize the professional learning community framework to enhance family and community engagement. Nathaniel, welcome to the podcast, buddy.
What's going on, Rob? Good to see you guys. Good to see you, Mike.
It's good to have you on. This has been in the works for, like 3-4 months now, something like that. So it's nice to get it finished. And we had a little bit of a scheduling snafu and almost put it in April, but it's a good thing we can get it out in August. Earlier is always better. So Nathaniel, you are maybe new to some of the people listening, so why don't you give us the little cliff notes about you? Tell us about you.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So 23 plus years in education, public education. I've had been blessed to have every job from substitute to superintendent and kind of everything in between. In a nutshell, I was 6 years as a third grade teacher. Absolutely loved that. Thought I was going to do that forever. And then someone pushed me and said, "Hey, you can lead a team pretty well. Why don't you go into administration?" It's like, "You're crazy. I'm never going to do that." And so I did it. And then was an assistant principal for 3 years. And then someone said, "You should be a principal." I said, "You're crazy. I'm never going to do that." And then I became a principal. And then I was a principal for 9 years and just loved it. It was just such an honor and a blessing to be able to serve as a school leader. And then someone said, "You should be a superintendent." And I said, "You're very crazy. I'm never going to do that." And so I became an associate superintendent. And then something happened around like this March 13th, 2020 date that kind of lives in infamy. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that date when the whole world shut down. And then anything that I thought about instructional leadership and serving schools through an instructional leadership capacity was totally thrown out the window, and pivoting and virtualing and getting kids and in and out and politics and doing all this stuff. And I decided that after when schools were opening, that the country was in much needed help, and the skills and the trainings and the blessings and the gifts that I had acquired through my journey shouldn't be relegated to a zip code. And so I decided to, just give it up to the universe and start my own leadership coaching and consulting, work. And for over 2 years now, I've been working in probably, it seems like, just hundreds of schools across America, helping school leaders, helping teachers, helping teams, helping districts with professional capacity and leadership growth and growing family engagement and community engagement, and doing everything I can to kind of be a missionary, for what's possible in public education. And it's a big job. There's 93,000 public schools plus, all the private schools. And so I've got my work cut out for me, but it's been amazing and I absolutely love it. The traveling can be a little tricky. But when I leave, I feel like I have this sense of hope for our school leaders, and I absolutely love the work. So I don't know how long I'll do it, but that's where I'm currently at.
That's really neat. I like to hear that journey, and it's amazing to me how many great leaders I hear go, "Oh, I never wanted to lead. I never wanted to do that. I never wanted to be a principal or a vice principal or a superintendent. I just wanted to be a classroom teacher." And so it's fantastic to see that there's been that desire put on your heart and that work that you want to do. Can you tell us a little bit about what kind of inspired you to step into education in the first place?
Yeah, I think we're all inspired by either the teachers that we had or the teachers that we didn't have. I am the first in my family to go to college. I wear that as one of my most proudest accomplishments. I come from, generational poverty, and I was really just blessed with um, parents that fought for me to be the best that I could do. They didn't always have the skills, and um, they weren't always equipped with all the things to help me, but they loved me, and they knew that I could break out of that cycle. And so I just had teachers that I really resonated with. I had teachers maybe that I didn't necessarily resonated with, and I just loved education. I loved, being around teachers. I loved that process. I loved kids. I loved delivering. And I said, you know what? I got three choices here. I could either join the military, I can work at the factory, or I can try to fill out these forms and this FAFSA forms or whatever it's called and try to get to college. So I gave it a shot, and oh shoot, I'm accepted. And so now, so maybe I should be a teacher. So that gift, that blessing of getting into college, which I never really expected, to be honest with you, and it was like, wow, you've been given a great opportunity to be the change that you want to see in the world. You've been given an opportunity to go into education and break generation poverty. You've been given an opportunity to be the teacher that you always wanted to be, or maybe be the teacher that you didn't have. And I was on the 5-year undergrad plan, because the first year I didn't know what I was doing, and once I figured that out, I became a teacher, and it was great. I'm from a small town in Tennessee, and I knew that there weren't necessarily the job opportunities in that small rural area, so I moved outside of Washington, D.C., and I've been here for 20 plus years.
Wow. That's fantastic. I think a lot of your story, I think, is going to resonate with a lot of people. I know it's resonating with me. The whole thing about, oh, I don't know, I'm never going to be a principal, and then, here I am.
Mm.
But also, I love the mission that you have about going into schools and connecting, because for our podcast, we're trying to provide administrators with, ideas or thoughts or connections. And so, for you to say that you go around and do that, I think is fantastic, because a lot of people can really feel like we're on an island. And sometimes when
Mm.
you're on an island, you start struggling with, am I doing a good job? Am I doing the right thing? How do I know it's the right thing? And sometimes that uncertainty can flood into job performance. It can flood into mindset, and even unintentionally, you can end up with a bit of a struggling school. And I'm sure you've seen lots of schools like that, or administrators that need help, or people that need help. Can you tell us a little bit about some of your work and the things that you do to help people who are struggling in schools or struggling schools themselves?
Yeah, this is a very challenging time in public education. Absolutely, no doubt. It was challenging before the pandemic. It's more challenging now. Um, you know, and I just think that with these immense challenges that our school leaders are having, and it's not just accelerating learning. I mean, I think I was reading some statistics that students in general are 3 to 4 months behind where they would have been, due to the pandemic. Well, that is a challenge in and of itself. But then if you layer the political rhetoric that's happening right now, especially with public schools, if you layer the lack of resources, some of the visceral conversations that's going on about our public educators and all the other things that's happening, it is so challenging for school leaders right now. It was challenging before, it's challenging now. One of the things that I do is when I have opportunities to go to schools, I want to be um, like I'm cross-pollinating ideas. So
Mhm.
it's one of those things like you were talking about leaders sometimes can be very myopically focused with what's happening in their building or their district or through that hemisphere of interest. So I have this opportunity to see the best that's going on. I have an opportunity to try to assist with some of the biggest challenges, and I'm learning from people all the time. So when I feel like a bumblebee, I'm cross-pollinating all these ideas. So if I were to go into your school, it's like let's do a little bit of an action plan. Like what's working well, let's refine what's working well, and let's define what's not working well. And then let me be your partner in coming in and trying to figure out the resources that you have, the human capital, the resources, and let's create a plan of excellence. I think that we have all the answers, and we have a lot of the resource. It's not about stuff. It's about staff. It's not about programs. It's about people. And I think that our school leaders have been, this is a general comment here, I'm not talking about everyone, but I'm seeing where schools are challenged the most is where they've been inundated with stuff. So, we had to buy these programs, and you have to do these programs with this horrible word called fidelity, right? We have to make sure that all these programs that we bought are being utilized lockstep so we can align, these tier one supports. And then we wonder why we're not accelerating learning. So we've spent all this money on programs, but we're not spending the money on people. And right now, I think the latest research is that 30% of new teachers are leaving within the first year, if we're even getting the teachers right now. And it's because they have to do everything. They have to be everyone to every kid. And I've never met a teacher that's so amazing that they have all the skills and talents necessary to meet the needs of these our students that we have. I've never met a principal that has all the skills and talents that's needed. It's a Hollywood myth that any one teacher or any one principal can be the total change agent in the school. So when I come in, I'm trying to create that true collective teacher efficacy. I'm also trying to help create collective community efficacy, because I feel that our teachers and our principals can't do it alone. So they have to cultivate strong collaboration within the school, but they also have to make sure the parents and families are part of this process as well, because our parents and families are our ambassadors. They're our missionaries as well. They're our customers, just like our students are our customers. Our teachers and our staff are our customers that we have to serve, and our parents and our families are our customers that we have to serve. And I think instead of just shooting out programs, we need to make sure that we are creating experiences for our people. We need to make sure that we're affirming the gifts and talents of our people. We need to make sure that our leaders have the skills and talents to be able to maximize and multiply their teachers and their teams' collective capacity. And our parents and our families have got to be a part of this process transparently all the way. And that's what makes a great school. So I feel in this work that if we can get down to that and train our teachers and our principals and our teams to be able to create a service mindset, an experience mindset, a relational mindset, student learning will take care of itself.
That's got me
so
fired
let me
up.
ask you a question. Oh, Robin and I are both thinking right now. Let me ask you a question maybe that jumps off of that a little bit, because I love what you're saying about the people. It's not just a matter of having the people, it's a matter of investing in the people. So we're talking about professional development. We're talking about building capacity to be able to effectively serve those that are in our classrooms and in our schools. So what would you say to that principal that is really having a hard time staffing a position, and they get a couple of applications and none of them are like fantastic? They're like, oh, they'll fit the bill and I can train them, or having somebody is better than having nobody. How would you respond to a principal struggling with that issue?
And it's a real issue. And so let's say this. So let me kind of break it down with a scenario. I've got school A, I've got school B right across the street from each other. Okay. Same district. The principal in school A is having a hard time staffing its faculty. It's got 3 positions. He's not getting the resumes. There's some just really issues with that. School B is same demographic, but school B is getting those resumes, and school B is actually like attracting some of the best and brightest that's out there. Same population, same demographic, same thing. So and then hypothetically, here's what school B is doing. School B has a strong purpose. School B has a strong why. They've branded their excellence. Their vision statement is crystal clear. Their mission is crystal clear. They're transparent with their goals. There's a growth of community support. Parents are invested in the school. The community business partners are invested in the school. The social media presence for school B is branded. There's a marketing campaign of excellence. The results are pretty good. And school B has a culture of collaboration. School B is very transparent with that teachers and don't have to work in isolation. School B says that we have a team approach, a collaborative approach to making sure that what we're doing is great. We're not excellent at it, but we're still growing with that. Now, which school would you want to go to? School A or school B? Now, school A, the vision statement is some 2-paragraph long, something, whatever. That's, the website hasn't been updated since, 2012. We have programs, we have stuff, we come in. That's why that's not happening. There are teachers out there, but we have to remember that we're always recruiting. And what kind of perception do our teacher candidates have about the school that we want to invest in, right? When we join a school, we join a family. Well, do you want to join a dysfunctional family where nobody knows what we're doing, or do you want to join a functional family? And you got school A and school B. What I just described with school B costs nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Costs nothing, right? It costs nothing to communicate your excellence. It costs nothing to brand your vision. It costs nothing to do that. And then there's no bait and switch. It's not like surface level. When you come in, this is absolutely what we believe in. Rob, I ask principals this simple question every time that I go to schools. I say, hey man, what's your vision statement? And why is it that principals still can't articulate what their why is? I was in one school. I said, hey man, what's your vision statement? And the principal said, oh, that's great. It's written somewhere. And I'm like, it's on the mural right behind you. So, I mean, simple things like that, we're not trained in. Principals aren't trained in true customer service, true customer experience, marketing and branding. And so it's not the teacher A or principal A's fault. They just need the skills to be able to do that. So in a nutshell, that's an idea that I think that we need to be more mindful of.
And I think the example you just gave, there are going to be people listening that are like, well, I know I shouldn't be like school A, but I feel like we are school A sometimes. And is that in your work with schools? You'd mentioned before the podcast that you travel something like 200 days a year. So you visit hundreds of schools every year. Is that the most common thing you see schools struggling with, is being able to articulate why they're doing what they're doing outside of the boilerplate, like, oh, we educate kids and care for people? Everybody's going to say that.
Yeah, sure.
Is that what
we care for kids? Well, so does Barney the dinosaur, right?
Yeah.
So what sets you apart from every other school? I always say there's 93,000 schools. What sets you apart from everyone else? And we don't think about that. And every school is a thing. It's like a thumbprint, right? Every school has something unique about their culture. Every school does. There's no, even if it's an academy where there's like, like a franchise-based school, every school is different. And so I always ask, like, okay, listen, let's look at your vision statement. Does it align your excellence? Does it inspire people? And does it motivate your community? I call that aim, right? Does it aim in the right direction? Align, inspire, and motivate. If it doesn't say that, then it's a waste of time. And people try to be cute with their vision statements, like, we care for kids and we have heart and all. I want your vision statement to say exactly where your school's going to be in 5 years. I want it to be a big, hairy, audacious goal, like that BHAG, right? I want it to say something like, Anywhere Elementary School will be the #1 school of choice for Virginia. I want it to be Anywhere Elementary will be a destination of excellence. Like it needs to be, a vision statement needs to articulate the future, and it needs to align, inspire, and motivate. Now that's the kind of school as a candidate that I want to be a part of. Right. Mm-hmm. And then your mission statement, which I think people make way too hard that it is, it needs to capture 3 ways your school can achieve that vision statement. Right. So with me as a principal, our vision statement was a little bit of a tagline, but it was like, we were all about excellence. So we were the Eagles. So our vision statement when I was a principal was, we're soaring for excellence. And then right underneath that, we were going to be the #1 Title I school in Virginia. And then our mission statement was that we were committed to best practices. We were going to be collaborative in everything that we do. And we're going to have a focus on community. We call it our 3 C's: commitment, collaboration, and community. And after 5 years, we were a model professional learning community. After 6 years, we were the winner of the 2019 DeFore award-winning PLC School of the Year. We were one of the highest performing distinguished Title I schools in Virginia. So we knew exactly where we needed to go. But if I didn't have it articulated, and if from my custodian to my kindergartner, everybody is going to know that vision and mission. Well, that's the kind of school I think teachers want to be a part of. People don't want to be part of abstract and ambiguous. They want to be part of something tight and righteous. And I think we're competing with a limited teacher pool right now. We have parents and families that are leaving our public schools, right? Or seeking out other options. And I'm not saying that that's not a bad thing, but for our public schools, we need to realize that we're losing customers. We're losing teachers, we're losing parents, we're losing students. And we need to start branding a little bit tighter, because that's our reality. It's kind of like the coffee shop, that has never changed its, routine, or never offered any good customer service because it was the only coffee shop in town. And then Starbucks opens across the street, right? You better change, you're going to go out of business. And I just think it's just something we've taken for granted for a long time. And I think our school leaders and our district people, and we need to approach some things a little bit different. And that's something that I'm seeing, that we're just trying to snake oil our way out of, this issue. We're just trying to silver bullet our way out of this. There is no program, zero. There is no program. There is no quick fix to this. It's about investing in people. It's about investing in service and making people feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves. When teachers leave the profession, or they leave or quit, they're really leaving people, right? They're really leaving people. And we need to make sure that we're attracting people and not losing people.
That's one of those things that I think everyone does want to look for. What's the easiest way to fix this problem? And the only way to fix this problem is work. And you as a person have to go do the work. You can't buy your way out of it. You can't hire a trainer to come in and talk your way out of it. You can't spend 2 days thinking, oh, we're gonna talk about a new mission statement. We put it on our binder. We put it on a shelf. We're done. It just takes so much intentional minute-to-minute work. And that, I think, as a school leader, is the first thing to go when you have a pipe burst or a fire in your parking lot. That's the first thing to throw away, because you know what? That's aspirational. That's forward thinking. That's something that I'm going to see fruit from later. But right now, there's a toilet clogged. I got to go take care of that right now. That's like problem number one. So what would you give as advice to somebody who's stepping into school leadership now? What would you say to that person to make sure they keep that at the forefront so they can do all of those things well down the line?
Yeah. I am not saying that, making sure that the flooded toilet is important, right? I'm not saying that the raccoon that just wandered in the building that you got to get, is important. I'm not saying that all those little things are important, but our job is instructional leaders. We're CEOs, chief education officers, not CMOs, chief management officers. And I think that I think what happens with new principals is they want to feel like they've accomplished something. And so they take care of the little fires, right, for 180 days without figuring out where the spark is coming from. And so it's kind of like teachers that have to feel like they just have to get through the curriculum, and then maybe the end results will take care of itself. I think sometimes principals feel the same way, because a lot of our best principals were also good teachers. But there is a habit and intentional excellence to good leadership. And one of the things that I help school leaders do is cultivate those habits of excellence. And so I'm going to say, listen, principal, I want you to spend an entire day with me. I'm the coach. I'm the consultant coming in. Give me your radio. That's your walkie-talkie. All right, let's turn it off. Go on. Turn it off. Go ahead. Click it. Keep going. Turn it off. Good. All right. We're going to set that aside. You've got an AP. They're going to take care of the stuff. You're going to follow me around all day, and we're going to meet with teachers and teams, and we're going to listen to how they're unpacking standards. We're going to listen to how they're creating assessments. We're going to really listen and help our teachers align activities. We're going to talk about extension. We're going to talk about remediation opportunities, good tier 1 practices. We're going to have our team set goals, and you're going to listen, and you're going to remove the barriers for that to happen so that you can create an amazing instructional experience for your kids and for your teachers. Now, I can't do that if I'm unclogging toilets, right? But what happens is new principals don't feel they have the skills necessary to lead that work. So they abdicate their authority to other people. Well, it's cool. The best leaders are the best learners. So learn how to cultivate tier one excellence. Learn how to create service and experience for not only for your students, but for your teachers and your families. And we'll talk a little bit about families as well. So and it's not the principal's fault, it's the supervisor's fault. Because the supervisors were also probably former principals that were managers. And so I think that a principal will do what their supervisor will also hold them accountable for. So when I was a superintendent, I wanted to hold my principals accountable, not for compliance, but for instructional excellence, right? I'm going to hold you accountable, and help you and support you. And I say accountable in not a negative way, but in a proactive way, to getting results and building relationships. So, principals are always going to do the best they can, just like teachers, but where is the message coming from? And I think that's something that we have got to understand. It's about people, not programs, right? It's about culture, not compliance.
Nathaniel, you've talked a lot about mission and vision and people and culture and so forth. I want to ask you a question I didn't prep you with before the podcast, so we know we're set with this one. But you travel. You said you do like hundreds of days a year traveling. You see a lot of schools. Is there a trend in education that people listening to this podcast need to start being aware of? Is there something that you're seeing that is on the horizon that schools and leaders are going to have to address sometime soon? And if so, what would you call it?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually kind of similar to what we're talking about. I just think that the trend is trying to find easy, and this has kind of been the topic of our conversation. And it's like you're going to have to choose your hard. It's either going to be hard now or it's going to be really hard later. And when it comes to accelerating learning, the trend is not to outsource excellence. And I just think our principal training operations, from our master's degree folks to our endorsement folks, it's time to do something different. What does Einstein say? Insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. No longer are the days of prairie room mentalities where the one teacher has to be everything for everyone. And so we need to start investing in what good collaboration looks like, because new teachers can't do it by themselves. And as long as we ask them to do things by themselves, they're going to get burnt out and they're going to leave. The other thing is we have to really invest in our families, and especially in public school. No longer are the days where we're just chasing around a couple of our, more involved parents to sign the improvement plan, or have the same three moms doing our PTA and PTO and kind of doing all those things. Those days are gone. And so how can we create the type of culture that sees every parent as an asset and not as an obstacle? How can we work that we have great customer experiences from the time the parent or the family walks into the parking lot to the time that they leave at graduation, that every experience is absolutely amazing? I'll give you a perfect example of this. I'm a father, right? I got a son and I travel a lot. And I'm usually, it's part of the job. I'm not able to be there with him, during the week. But he broke his leg. A little man plays soccer. He broke his leg. So I had to change my schedule so I could pick him up from school. So it was crazy. He's a soccer player. He's in 8th grade. So I had to change my schedule to pick him up. So, and I hadn't really been to his school the whole year just because of my job. So, so the first day I go to pick him up, I walk and I go to the video doorbell. I don't know, like security, you got the doorbell thing. It actually looks just like a prison. It's just a brick wall and there's a button that it says push here, and you push the button and I hear this voice at the other line say ID. Not hey, Mr. Provencio, not hey, how's it going? Good to see you. It was just ID. What that triggered in me is the same thing that happens when I get pulled over by the police, right? So me, as someone who does customer service and experience and works with schools across the country, goes to his child's school, and the first thing I hear is ID. That's an experience that's going to last with me so much. I'm sharing it with you on a podcast, right? So that was an opportunity to build a relationship with a parent. And so now, I mean, think about how many more positive opportunities I'm going to have in order to erase that one negative opportunity. So maybe now I'm going to be a little bit resistant about joining a PTO. Maybe now I'm going to be a little bit resistant for doing some other things, right? So we have to be on guard that we are working with a public that has options, and we need to make sure that we are training our entire culture to be mindful of these experiences and these interactions with our parents and our families, because our parents and our families are so vital. And what happened is what's happening now, and what I'm seeing is that the visceral and the some of the more negative connotations that parent and family groups are having, it's because maybe they weren't invited to the table in the beginning. It's because maybe they were feeling marginalized or disenfranchised by their schools years ago. So because they didn't have a voice then, they're looking for a voice now. And so now we've got to kind of figure that out. And and it's just, and I think in our culture, especially in our American culture, we've become desensitized to negative service. Like everywhere we go, we have crappy service. You know what I mean? And so it's almost like as customers, right? We're like, oh, bad service is just what we expect, but we can't expect that in our public schools. And our school leaders have got to understand that there is a intentional purpose for attracting and taking care of our parents and our families, but also our teachers as well, right? So not only as a CEO of a school, as a principal, not only do we serve students, we serve teachers and staff, and we serve our parents and families. And I think if we can be more intentional with that, and then understanding that we have to have instructional, and I hate the word fidelity, I'm going to say integrity. We got to have integrity with our instructional practices. We'll get our results. We'll start moving the needle. And I think that's something that's more abstract than maybe school leaders have thought about. Mike, you're a school leader. I'm sure these questions either have come across your mind or maybe they haven't come across your mind.
No, you're absolutely right. You're hitting every nail on the head here about taking care of people. I mean, we are in the people business. This is nothing to do. I mean, we do have a product, and we want to make sure that we do that, like you said, with integrity. But part of doing that with integrity is knowing the people. It's not these teachers that just pull last year's lesson plans off the shelf and dust them off and make new photocopies. It's learning the people that we serve so that we can serve them to the best of our abilities. And it is creating that community. You're hitting every target there as well. The community connections are vital because a school needs to be more than just an instructional 6-hour building. It needs to be a place where people feel welcome, feel like it's their home. So I'm excited about your work with the community connections and the PLCs, because you're absolutely onto it. I think this is fantastic stuff.
Now, Nathaniel, watching an interview you did, you were talking about how you started counting parents having lunch with their kids as volunteer hours at your school. And I think that ties in so well to what you're talking about, because we kind of view parents hands off a lot of the time, right? And that is the exact wrong tack to take, because we want them involved really as much as they can, because the more involved they are at school, the better their kids are going to do, the better the school is going to run. And you can tell how happy a parent is by how often they are at school and for what reason. If a parent is never at school except when their kid's in trouble, I guarantee you they're not having a good experience with your building, with your community, right? But if they are there all the time, that's the place they want to be and that's the place they want to hang out. That's like the best thing you can have for your community. What are some ways you guys have been intentional, and you've seen places be intentional about inviting parents in more than just, hey, here's supply drop off, here's car line, right? And for the private school principals listening, you should start counting parents having lunch with their kids as volunteer hours. I'll say take that idea from Nathaniel for sure. They're, as he says, they're opening lunches, they're helping out, they're sitting with kids. Let that time count, because you'd probably be surprised how many more parents would show up if they knew a half hour with their kid at lunch was volunteer time. They'd totally do it. And so many of our Lutheran schools have a volunteer requirement for parents anyway. So what are some of those ways you think we could be more intentional about interacting with our families and our communities?
What's more important, making copies or making memories? Right? What's more important, making copies, making memories? What's more important, building bulletin boards or building relationships? And we need to look at our parents and families not just as cheap labor. We need to look at our parents and families as assets and not obstacles. I'm going to share a story that's very personal to me. I'll try not to get emotional about it because it's a tough one, but it's one that kind of articulates the importance of every family member. I hope we have time to share this. But when I was a superintendent, it was where I remember driving around in my superintendent mobile or whatever, my superintendent car, and I'm checking on different schools. I had 20 schools that I had the privilege of supervising. And it was the next year after our schools had been started to open after the pandemic. And we had kids in hybrid, we had kids virtual, we had kids, in person. But I served a high immigrant population with our 20 schools, high immigrant population, Title I, very economically disadvantaged, in the best of times, and then put COVID on top of it. So lots of challenges. I'm driving around and I'm at the corner of a very busy intersection. And I know this is like 1:00 in the afternoon. And I noticed that there is a young lady who's holding up a sign that says homeless, need help for rent. And we have, sometimes we become desensitized with, homeless, on the corners and things. I get it. And so I noticed it, but I noticed again, and there was a child sitting next to this woman, and the child had a laptop. This is in the corner of a busy intersection. So the mom, I'm assuming it was the mom, was asking for money, but there was a child that had a laptop that was sitting down next to her, and something just tugged at my heart that something just wasn't quite right. As a superintendent, I need to double check what's going on. So I pulled the car over. I got out of the car. I dug around my pocket for some couple bucks or whatever, and I gave the woman the money. And I said, "Hey, listen, my name's Nathaniel, and I work for the school system. I'm just checking to see what's going on. I noticed you got a child here." And she said, "Oh, well, thank you so much for coming up to me. I know this looks bad. This might be a little embarrassing, but I just got kicked out of my child and I got kicked out of our house. I lost my job a couple weeks ago. I couldn't pay the rent. I don't have anywhere to go. And this is just temporary. But I want you to know my child is still in school." And I'm like, "Well, what do you mean in school?" She goes, "Well, he's doing virtual work right now." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And I talked to the young man, and sure enough, he was in class. And the mom said, "The reason why I'm right here is because we're so close to this store over here. We get free Wi-Fi, so I can pick up Wi-Fi. So my child, but listen, I love my child's school, and even though we got kicked out and we can't go to the school anymore, I don't want my child to miss a single day of school. And even though I've fallen on such hard times, and even though this looks bad, and I'm just trying to find a place for tonight, I'm not going to have my kid lose his education in spite of things that I can't control." And it was interesting because not only were we at an intersection, I felt I was at an intersection and having this conversation. Because what that mother was telling me was that that every parent, regardless of their situation, every parent, regardless of their circumstances, I feel absolutely deeply cares about their child's education. They may not always have the skills and training and resources necessary to articulate that, but every family cares about their kid. After I heard that conversation, I said, "Listen, we're going to get you taken care of. I'm going to call my social worker. I'm so sorry this happened. We're going to get you taken care of." We got her housing for the rest of the week. Was able to allocate busing transportation to get the kid back in school. There's a lot of other, details in this story. But 6 months later, I learned that parent had passed away. And the parent's name was Hope. I didn't realize that. So this parent has taught me more about the importance that our families and our parents and our communities can bring. But are we taking the time to hear their stories, right? Are we taking the time to meet them at their door versus always waiting for the parents to come to our door? And I think if we can just do a little bit more of that, excellence will grow tremendously if we just take the time to listen. And that was Hope's message for her son. And I'm trying to also help share that message of hope.
That's so powerful. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that with us. I felt like I've learned so much from talking with you. I want to thank you for being on and for talking with us. And I have like index cards all over my desk now filled with notes. It's been a pleasure and an honor to have you on the podcast today. I just want to say thank you. Links to Nathaniel's website and Twitter account will be in the show notes, so please check those out. He's also a speaker, presenter, and consultant, and you can get more information about that at the link in the show notes as well.
No, my pleasure, man. My pleasure.
Mike, is there anything else you'd like to end with? Otherwise, you know what time it is, Mike.
It is time. It is time to lift us all up in prayer. And Nathaniel, I'd like to pray for you as well in your work as you relate to schools all over the place, and bless us and our listeners, and bless schools. So why don't we say a quick prayer? Heavenly Father, God, thank you for the day that you've given to us and the opportunity that we've had to learn from Nathaniel. Lord, thank you for the wisdom that he has to share as he's gone into places and learned so much. And I thank you that you've given him the opportunities to be able to share these stories, to not just support one school or one place, but to have an impact that is probably far more reaching than even he knows. Lord, as all the listeners hear what we've shared on this podcast today, I pray that you would inspire in them some ideas where they can align and inspire and motivate others through the work that you've called them to do. Bless Nathaniel as he continues to learn and to lead. And thank you for this opportunity that we've had to spend some time with him. We lift all this up to you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Nathaniel.
Thank you.